It's good though. No, that's actually awesome. Let's do it.
All right.
All right. We're actually rolling. I was just saying to Dennis, we need to get the giggles out. Yeah, welcome. My name's Will McLeod. This is the great man, Dennis Chance of Love, 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 which is a good intro into the fact that we're actually here today to talk about Love, 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 all the music he's made, the process it took to actually create the up-and-coming EP, which is called, Dennis?
It's called Chrysalis, Will.
And I think it will be coming out when this comes out.
Yeah.
Very
I'll
soon.
drop this
So
on the night.
you might have already listened to the EP by the time you're listening to this. But just a little bit about me. So I'm not just a random bloke talking to Dennis, but Dennis is a dear friend of mine. And I've had the privilege of being a part of the creative process when it comes to photography and the visual process to the EPs. I think last few singles and this up-and-coming EP, I've been a strong part of what that will look like visually. So, but it all comes from the great mind of Dennis Chance.
I was going to tell him to introduce himself as the visual and creative director.
I
but
like that.
That seems
Visual
a little bit...
creative director.
You're
Yep.
too humble for that. But
I do like that. But we're in this beautiful house right now. I feel very blessed and very lucky to be sitting here. To a house that our friends live in. And I thought it would be only fitting to acknowledge that this place is a very important part of the EP, the up-and-coming EP.
For sure.
Chrysalis. And I thought we'd just start there because obviously music, as we both agree, and I think the listeners will agree, isn't just something that you just sit and just write. There's actually a process to it. It's inspired by love, loss, faith, all sorts of deep things.
Sure.
And I know this house in particular kind of played into that. So if you want to start talking about the house.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is a beautiful house in... I'll say where it is because people know.
Yeah, of course.
It's in the beautiful 4017 in Shorncliffe, Sandgate. And I've spent the last kind of 3 to 4 years just living here and moving here and kind of building a community here. So that it's special in that way, in that we're in the location, but I think it's more special, or maybe a little bit more kind of indicative of the season that this EP is about, just because we spent so much time here, you know.
Yeah.
And as much as you've been doing photos and all that sort of stuff, you know, we're all part of a community of friends and people that we really love. And this house has kind of been this kind of communal, what would you say, like sanctuary is the word that pops to mind.
Yeah.
That we all kind of, move around this space, and we've had late nights here, we've had fun nights here, we've had birthdays here, we've had periods of people getting married and getting engaged that have involved this house. And then I think even just beyond that, maybe even from a reflective or spiritual point of view, it overlooks, you can't see it right now, but it sort of overlooks the ocean. And
might open it up at the end for everyone to see. Although it probably would just be blown out with the sun. But it's
beautiful. It's this beautiful place of being able to... My memory of one of the most kind of profound moments here is looking out there as the sun's coming down or coming up.
Yeah. And
just being with you guys and being with the people and being in that season, and whether that's, 2:00 in, the afternoon, starting then and seeing the sunset go down, just talking about life and stuff, or whether it's on my own at 4 a.m. as the sun's coming up. I think that part of it and the way it connects to this house is this seamless kind of, just special place, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is true that this place for all of our friendship group, has definitely been a bit of a solid rock for everyone to turn to. And what a privilege to have a place like this that we can all hang out at. So that brings me to, your last EP, what was it called?
It's called...
testing him whether he knows his own music or not. One day you won't. You have that many albums.
I had a blank to send. It was called Everything Feels Like a Movie.
Everything Feels Like a Movie, which is very fitting.
On Will's Spotify Wrapped, number one.
Yes,
I feel very blessed.
I feel like it should be embarrassing to have one of your best mates on your number one, but all my friends are like, that's really cute. I'm like, you know what? It is really cute. And I was just saying to Dennis before that Everything Feels Like a Movie will actually be, it probably is one of my favorite EPs of all time.
Thanks,
personally,
bro.
I love folk music, and we were just talking about the release of Bon Iver's new album and how he's been a real inspiration for you as an artist, but just in general,
Sure.
I feel like our friends and our community really love folk music. And more music that actually has a bit of substance and storytelling to it.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the narrative from the last EP? Just briefly talk about where your mind was with that last EP going into this new EP, and how did you find as an artist to have to sit there and look into the eyes of the beast, which is to create a new EP that's different and start again. So where was that? Was it a life event, or how did you
That's a great
transition into the new
question.
new
Someone
storytelling?
the other day asked me on a pod about this exact thing, and I actually didn't know how to answer, but it was a good precursor for answering it now. And I think I would say the last EP was for me a little bit more about just saying things how they are and reflecting on a really beautiful time in my life. That was pretty straightforward, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It was straightforward. It was falling in love, reflecting on the last few years, moving to this side of town, moving away from my family. That real informative period of living on your own, got married, lots of beautiful things happening, and kind of just reflecting with this beautiful lens of just life. Literal, like things are just very literal. They're very straightforward, and also I made it all in a tiny, rickety old place in the same suburb we're in now, living with my wife, and so it kind of just reflected the minimalism of that time. We didn't have much, didn't have a particularly big following as a musician. Still don't really, but I think even less so back then, and that meant for me that I wasn't really worried about changing. And I think a lot of the questions I get around this are always like, oh, you really changed your sound. And as you guys will hear now, obviously I'm going back to maybe the origins of Love, Love, Love a little bit. And I think this time I was probably a lot less worried about what it sounded like. I feel like the last EP, I was like intentionally trying to make a folk EP, a minimal EP, something that was all about just stripping it away and just talking about what's actually happening. Whereas this time I just wanted to write and just allow the production to do that. And I think the event that triggered this, and this is littered all through the EP, and I've talked about it a lot. People are probably already aware of it by this point, but it probably is a seasonal EP. The last one was very reflective over a number of years. This EP was very much the last 6 to 8 months. And if I have to like put brackets on it, it would be like probably from like June, July last year to basically like New Year's Day this year. And you were a part of a lot of that and went through a lot of that with me. And I think there was just so much that happened that maybe the last EP was about reflecting like the last few years, saying things how they are, falling in love, getting married, all these kind of more adult concepts. And then this EP has felt a lot more about particular lessons that I've learned in the last 6 months about myself. I think we all fall into the trap of thinking maybe we've got it figured out. Yeah. Once we, get married, or once we, I don't know, just settle down.
Adult milestones. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so many important things happened in the last 6 to 8 months. You moved back from interstate, which is a big thing. One of our best friends' dad's passed away, which is another big thing. This house came about, and that's another big part of it. I'm just trying to think. There's so many things. I think things with my family that I hadn't encountered before. And just maybe a realignment, or maybe a bit of, and I use the word metanoia a lot in these songs. It's like this process of realizing that the last 6 months have actually been a big journey and a big season. And this EP is very much about, I think, maybe like reflecting on the season, but also putting a bow in it, tying it up. And I get nostalgic, and I often want to live in those states of being. And I realize that I actually can't. But, as you've said, and all of our other mates in this community, and just this whole EP has probably taught me that it's good to put a full stop in a season and move on to the next one, and just accept that it was what it was. And so that's what this EP is about. It's about the journey of the last six months. So hope that answers that. I guess it does.
No, absolutely. I think just to stay on the point about, you mentioned how this up-and-coming EP kind of wrestles with the idea of growing up. And just from what you were saying just then, and obviously we'll all relate to that, as doesn't matter what age we are. I think us in particular at the age where things do feel very adult all of a sudden.
For sure.
I think, reflecting on the time of like, say when you're like 17 to your early 20s, it's all fun. And then it seems to kind of like out of the blue, hits you in the face. You start feeling these things that are very adult, whether that be love, getting married, these big milestones that tell us that you really are an adult. And it seems like in your music, you've had this narrative of almost like would you say it's like a bit of an imposter syndrome or wrestle with like growing up and everything's kind of coming at you fast? And you're like, I still want to hold on to my youth and try and, you talk about that a lot. And we'll listen to some of your songs. We'll listen to the whole EP very soon. Yeah. But there's a song called Pisces, which I think is my favorite off the EP.
I think it's maybe my favorite too. Yeah.
And you kind of like, a lot of your music is like almost like self-talking to yourself, right? Like it's almost like therapeutic for yourself. Dialogue, yeah.
For sure.
And you talk about, you literally sing in the song about, we're getting older. Like you keep repeating to yourself, we're getting older. And it's fine. We're trying to tell us it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. But there are these universal truths of getting older, of like just being cool with the end of the spectrum that's really good and life-giving, like getting married and falling in love. But then loss, like losing out one of our dear friends' dads, and it is really, it's a really hard wrestle. So how did you get all these things that were happening and then step them out into each individual song? Like how's the writing process then actually practically happen when you've got all these themes to do with growing up and life coming at you very fast? Love,
it's
loss.
A lot, hey, it's a lot.
I
actually don't think about it. Yeah.
Oh, all right, I'm going to write a song now. How about these microphones, mate? He's wearing a singlet. He can show off that the biceps. Me, I'm like shaking over here with this microphone. Maybe it's the coffee. I just realised you don't have an unreasonably good cup of coffee. What's going on? You sucked it down before.
Yeah, it's already gone.
Coffee, yeah.
Wow. So on the getting older thing, I think a part of my personality and a part of who I am is the idea of always, like I said, being a bit nostalgic and wanting to hang on to these things out of a place of probably existentialism. Like, I don't really know what I'm going through is valuable until I've gone through it. I think there's people who are really good at, like, oh, I'm going through this right now. I think this is the lesson in that. I'm not like that. And I try really hard to do that actively because I know I'm bad at it. And so that's why it's always a reoccurring theme, because I'm so, nostalgic or reflective. I think it's both, but it's also this thing of just when things aren't good in your life, you want to know why they're happening. And for me, I'm just not good at understanding that until afterwards. And so that leans into the writing process thing, I think, which is something I've learned about myself recently. Or in making this, I think there was actually, in the past, I wouldn't say I've taken a lot away from the music. I've just expressed, but this time I actually had that catharsis of like writing it and understanding. And I think this time around the writing process was very different, because this time I actually did use it as a mechanism of understanding and reflecting, not just reflecting. Like in the past, I've made stuff as a reflection because I've processed it. And I'm always like, it's funny, it's always like, this is the closest amount of time I've ever made something after it's happened. Yeah. Like all the other stuff is always years on because I've had time to think about it and digest it. But this time around, I think because I explored it in the writing and reflected and kind of processed it through the writing, I probably felt like I learnt quicker, which was good. So writing process for this one was like more about, and I always think about John Mayer on the Zane Lowe show, where he talks about, he calls it like doing the Ouija board, where he like gets the guitar and he goes, if you're not doing this, you're not writing. Like, and he gets the guitar and he sort of just starts strumming some chords and just starts scatting whatever comes from the top of his head as the core idea. And I'm also a big lover of all the Rick Rubin stuff, where it's like, there's probably a layer of subconscious stuff going on that you don't know is there, but if you don't tap into it, it will never come out. And for me, as someone who is a reflector and not always good at processing, I've always kind of lent towards just writing about what I've, like I said before, what I've been through. But this time I actively just tried to, I don't know what you call it, maybe channel or like tap into that thing in the back of your mind for what you're going through. So I would just sit there and I would like just pick up the guitar at the end of a long day. Yep. And I would just start strumming or like coming up with things. And I've always got a running like book of notes or ideas, and I think that's maybe one thing I can give myself credit for is I always have a note of like ideas or concepts. Like War Made the Cigarette, that song, that note has been in my phone for so long. And so I was able to just channel that into something. But I think I just sat down and I was just not afraid to like just sing random, like, I don't know, just goop of words. And then it all kind of comes out. And I think, yeah, like a song like War Made the Cigarette happens in 10 minutes because you tap into that bigger thing. Not that all of the songs on the EP are like that, but I think that's probably what was different this time around is it wasn't so much about reflection. It was more about processing, I think, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you have, did you have note pieces, like literal lyrics written down or voice memos of these songs from, could be years or months ago, and then it all made sense now and you created that? Or did it all just come out of this recent, were they all brand new songs, or did you draw from any old ideas from when you're going through that exact process of just playing guitar and sitting in your little studio by
Probably
yourself?
not this time, which is funny. Like it's every other EP's been like that. There's notes, there's ideas because it's all reflective. It's like this happened to me a few years ago. I've gone through whether if it's a bad thing, the healing, if it's a good thing, the euphoria of the moment, and then coming back and kind of doing that. But this time, not really. I think I remember sending you the very early piano of When I Think of Love, I Think of You.
That's right. It was going to be like a beautiful ballad.
Yeah, it was going to. Maybe it will still be that. I know you still want that ballad, but I remember doing that, and that was very much in the training process of just sitting down, playing chords, and just being like, "What's going to come from this?" And I think when I think of love, when I think of that song, I think it's probably lyrically the most simple of all the songs on the EP. Because it was maybe the first one where I was still working out how to get into that headspace. Yeah. But I think it just starts with something beautiful. I think it starts with like playing something on an instrument, tapping into the symbiotic. There's a big word. Put that on the big word.
Plenty of big words to come.
Put that on the big word list. But just like symbiotically going, this sounds beautiful, and I would want to listen to this, or play the piano part to this, and just listen to it. And allow it to... It's kind of a bit... I'm saying things that lots of musicians say, but I think I'm saying them because they're true and they're not corny. They're just universal concepts, right? Of tapping into the music and going, I'm just going to play 4 chords over and over and over and over again and allow those things that bubble up to actually just be the things. And that's scary because... When I think of love, I think of you. Like I said, I think it's lyrically not particularly dense. It's not the hardest song that I've ever written. But once again, it's just grounded in the truths of when I think of love, I think of these things. And that in itself, I have to allow that to be profound. So much music that we listen to, we talked about Bon Iver before, and how this album's probably a little bit more just literal. It's not as lyrically complex. But it's because we connect to it because we are allowing... ourselves to just be touched by the simplicity of the truth of just what it is. And that's like things like love, getting older, your friends, getting married, losing somebody. They're universal experiences. And it's not like I've sat down and gone, I'm going to write about universal experiences. It's just the fact that they happened to me and they were meaningful because I allowed my heart and mind to be open to the fact that they're just real experiences. And so, and then just processing them. If I like was going to box it up, that's what I'd say this EP is about. It's just allowing myself to experience things that have happened to me with the lens of everything matters and everything's okay and I'm allowed to feel all of these things.
So do you, when you think now, reflecting back on the long time, how long do you reckon, if you could put a start to finish to writing the EP, what that period actually looked like that process of writing it, how long do you think that?
I think...
If we can actually put a timeline on it.
If in my head, the kind of season that this is all about, if we're saying, I feel like maybe June through to New Year's Eve, I think I probably took 4 months to make it in total, which the last EP took me 20-something days. Like I just hammered it out, got it done, and the songs were all written. This time around, I probably took the approach that Jared and I took on the first EP, which was to kind of, because it's very directive of the music, probably allowed myself the writing to happen while producing. So it's hard to give like it's a full timeline. But I would say I thought the EP was done in November, and then I sat down, and then War Made the Cigarette happened, and I only finished
Tune.
that like
Massive tune.
yeah, maybe in like February. Finally got that finished, and I think what was hard about it this time, or funny about it this time, is I thought the EP was done, so I'm sending stuff off to the distributors. I'm getting visuals ready. You know, we were shooting stuff before the EP was even done, and then you go, "Oh, dude, one more song." And it's funny because that happened on the last
I felt
EP.
like yesterday that you had one more song to go.
So I think it's funny that it's happened. Yeah. So I mean, to answer your question, probably four months, probably starting from like, maybe last year in August, kind of finishing up now. So I feel like that's a good amount of time, and I feel like I gave myself enough time to get it to sound how I want it to sound. And I think, it was funny sending stuff off to the agents and everything to get everything delivered, and then kind of having one more song rock up and just going, I have to finish this song.
Yeah.
The song makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think one thing I just wanted to talk about, and I think it's really good for the fans and listeners to see into. I know when I think of artists like Bon Iver, and you mentioned John Mayer, the great man, the GOAT of all time, as you and I would say. We both love John Mayer. People either love or hate John Mayer, I've come to realise. We love him. We love him
unapologetically.
But when we make things like this, like have a conversation, a podcast, it's great to talk about the stories, but I think people really want to know, and what you spoke about, the process of things happening and how you write these songs, and it inspires up-and-coming artists to do the same. It's like, I was just thinking about that funny TikTok reel, and everyone talks about the ultimate indie guy, and he's like, do you know Tame Impala is just one guy? And I just want to acknowledge that. I want you to talk a little bit about how you, Dennis, are Love, Love, Love. You did come from... You started this project of Love, Love, Love with our dear friend Jared Hundermark. How are you, my bro?
Jared,
we love him so much. He's on his own path of creating beautiful music, and he's just released an EP as well called Reflections. And he's living down in Sydney at the moment, and he's chasing his dreams there. And you guys started off with a very creative relationship, making music together. And then he went and pursued what he felt more inclined to do. And then you all of a sudden were in the deep end, and you were by yourself. Now, what people don't realize is that, yes, you are writing this by yourself. You are the creative vision, and you get to pick where these EPs go. But I want you to talk a little bit about, who do you have to lean on when it comes to writing these songs? Who maybe helps you write these songs? People don't realize all the stuff that happens behind the scenes with, even in the world that we live in today, with like TikTok and Instagram, and pushing your music out there in this creative, in this competitive, I should say, competitive time of music. You know, we're not living in Bob Dylan times where you can just go and play in a pub in Brooklyn and then you blow up. And he blew up because he was Bob Dylan. He was incredible. But it is interesting. I wonder if you grab someone like Bob Dylan now and put him in this competitive time. Like, well, it's scary with how much music's out there. We're so grateful to have so much music, but there's a lot more than just writing music. So can you talk a little bit about who do you have to lean on, who gets involved, and the actual story arc and behind the scenes of creating an EP?
It's hard to know where to start. I think it feels a little bit egotistical to be like, it's all me. It's a Kevin Parker situation. In many ways it is, but in many ways I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you guys, without my friend group, without all these people and everyone who gets involved. And I think for me, writing is this very personal process, and I would, as you know, I would much rather share that with people who understand me. And it's why I actually struggle to collaborate a lot, because I find it really hard to share those experiences, collaborating in a writing sense, because for me it is that old school thing of like, I'm writing from a place of reflection and processing. We've talked about that already, and I think trying to do that on a commercial level is something I find really difficult, and I doubt myself. So on a writing level, even though I'm doing majority of it on my own, it's a constant mirror, and I'm constantly sending you and Manny and Jared and all these people in our lives who are in we embark on the journey together. You guys don't have much say in that. It's mainly just me pushing it on you guys. But I think that's what works, is that you guys accept what I'm sending you, and you actually, the amount of people
never
who
stop. We love it. Never
the
stop.
amount of people you send music to, or like, you know, an Instagram and all these things, are all a big convincing game.
Yeah.
And it's a game of convincing and FOMO, convince, you know, and I think with me, I love that I don't have to do that with you guys. I just send you guys the music, and you kind of understand what I'm trying to say and do, and you do it with such detail. So on a writing level, yes, I'm writing it, but I'm often doing it with this beautiful mirror of sharing it with people and kind of allowing you guys to refine that.
Yeah.
When it comes to like, well, I'm just got a little burp going on.
Oh, no, I
Bit
had
of
a little one
sourdough
before.
Vegemite and butter off for breakfast. Oh, there it is. On a production level, it is also a big part of it is for me, because I'm so insular in what I do.
Yeah.
It is a lot of the time just me hours in front of the computer. But once again, I have this beautiful reflective process. And I think on an artistic level, you guys are still my bouncing board in that space. But on a technical level, I do have people that I bounce things off as well. And I think I like to keep those two things separate. Because
they're very different relationships.
Very
right?
different.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love that I can send you guys stuff on a brother to brother kind of level. But I love also that I have my nerdy people that I can send stuff to. And I think, you know, Jared's probably the one that also crosses over in that space.
True.
But also, people like...
But I'd say your friends are kind of a
big
mirror,
rock.
are
A big
mirror
rock. Yeah.
to
For sure.
to what the actual EP is about, and we understand the process.
And
so,
you've been through it with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is, I think which gives it the magic. You know, you could go and write, you know, pop songs that people are going to love, and it has no meaning.
Yeah.
But like, what's the fun in that? You know,
Yeah.
like you're gonna.
I think, to be honest, I think there is fun in that, but I think it's just not what I'm trying to achieve for myself. You know, like I have one of my best friends who lives in Nashville, writes songs every day, and I have an incredible amount of respect. Shout out Jordan for what he does, and I think
Good on you, Jordan.
and
You're the man.
And I think, but it's not what I'm trying to achieve, and it's just, I don't think there's. I think we often get into this debate about A and B and which one's better and which one's real, and I think we're asking the wrong questions. I think the questions that I'm asking myself is, what am I trying to do? And what I'm trying to do is just reflect on my life and process that.
Of course, yeah.
But coming back to your point, it's like I also, in that technical space, you know, I have people like James who plays in the band with me. I have people like, I send, you know, one of our mates, Luke Jenkins, stuff, and I have artists that I also look up to.
Yep.
People like Lawson Hull or Vancouver Sleep Clinic, who I'm actively sending them what I'm working on. People like Neptune as well, who you know, they might not be crazy on the friendship side of things, but they're people that I just trust their taste.
They get the world as well.
They understand what I'm trying to do, and they give mixed feedback. And I think I'm wearing so many hats. It's like social media, writer, producer, and then I'm doing all the mixing and mastering. It's like people like Sam Ailing from Disney Light as well. Can't forget Sam. I send Sam stuff all the time, and it's those people have a massive effect on what I do. And I think the thing that I like the most about all of this, the writing part, the media part, the technical and artistic perspectives, is that everybody is okay with me like not following through out of a place of respect for what I want to do, but they're also totally cool with me following that advice, and they don't want anything from it. I think that's the thing that is beautiful, is Sam and I send each other stuff all the time, and
you're that person for Sam,
and and for other people, and I think it becomes this that's maybe where the collaboration does happen, where it's not so much about being in the room with people for me, because it's very introspective and insular, and I'm creating in a bubble, in a box. But that's where I kind of pop the bubble and go, hey, like, what do you think of this? Oh, this is great. You know, and Sam might be, you know, we might get real nerdy, and Sam will be like, I think there's too much body in this vocal. And I'll go, hey, well, thank you for that. I'll change that. Or I might send it to someone else, and they might say, oh, I really like how much body is in the vocal, or, you know, just to get on a little bit nerdy, you know.
Stuff that the common man don't understand.
Yeah,
but I need
that feedback, and it's beautiful for them to be like, hey man, take it or leave it. Like it's really freeing in that way. So
Yeah.
and those people always end up inspiring. Maybe I'll segue. I'll take your job just for a second. I'll segue into maybe listening to the EP now. But, you know, the first song off the EP was very much inspired by Luke Jenkins, one of our good friends. I remember
Shout out.
literally, and this is where this
I'm about
house.
to see him tonight. Coming for you, Luke.
This is where, like, this house, once again, I'll bring it back to this. It's so special. I sat out there with Luke maybe in September last year, and Luke's never been selfish with his music or with the Vancouver Sleep Clinic stuff. He's always happy to show me what they're working on. As a fan, I love that. And Luke was showing me they had just played this festival in Indonesia maybe, or Jakarta or something, and he played me some footage and they had a walk-on song. And he goes, I actually made this song from all of the other stems from old Vancouver Sleep Clinic stuff. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, that's such a beautiful thing to be able to create and recreate and and upcycle your own music. And I think maybe it's a great segue into Chrysalis. And I did, you know, not to copy Luke and those guys exactly, but I felt very inspired to do the same thing. Have a look through every era of Love, Love, Love. The early stuff, the EP, first EP, the kind of in-between singles, Golden, Valentine, and then look at the new, the folk EP and just go, how can I turn this into something beautiful? And yeah, maybe we'll have a listen to it and then we can talk about it a little bit.
Just before we get into the
hit
first
me.
song,
Hit me.
Chrysalis, I think we need to finish on this. I think people love...
tell me.
They love knowing what their favourite artists... Well, who's your favourite artist, right? So just on the question of influential people like Luke Jenkins, Sam Ailing, the great man Tim from Vancouver Sleep Clinic.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're big on 1975, and we love 1975.
Yeah.
And we'll try and keep it short and sweet so we can get into the first song.
Yeah.
But who are the artists that actually inspire you to create your own individual music? But we do know that... especially in the modern world today, music is coming from inspiration of all the pioneers, whether it be the Beatles or whoever it is. Who are some of the artists that have inspired you and given you that fire to kind of, create your sound of music?
This EP, I feel like it changes every EP and every year, right? So maybe I'll answer it for this EP just because it's in the front of my head. I think for this EP, once again, you and I just talked about this a lot in the past, but I never had the Gang of Youths moment. That a lot of the youth.
You're better for it now that you've had it.
Yeah, so that was a big thing, particularly around the idea of spirituality, metanoia, all these concepts, like finding yourself a little bit again when you think you've all had it worked out. So I have to put Gang of Youths up there for this EP as a pretty driving force for song, lyrically, especially a big driving force. War Made the Cigarette has a real Gang of Youths kind of outro, but I think lyrically they're still more important. I think, I can't ignore the 75 always is a big thing. I think the 75 is more an inspiration for me on an intellectual level and on a sonic level than it is necessarily on I love their music. I think I love being a part of the fandom. I love being part of the group of people who are like, you don't get Matt Healy, but I do, which, is a bit kind of on the nose, but... Which is what's fun about being obsessed with an artist, being a fan. And being a genuine fan. I think it's very different. The Gang of Youth thing is a reverence for what they do and a lyrical thing, but it's very new. The 1975 thing is a thing that I love how it's kind of playful. It's kind of tapping into the idea of it's very meta. They know what they're doing and they make fun of themselves. I think also maybe for this EP, another big influence. I'll try and give you two more. I think the Ryan, that we talked about this earlier as well. The Ryan Beatty album was massive. I think songs like White Teeth, Bruises off the Peach, just massive once again from like knowing you can make something long form that doesn't scream, listen to me. It's just like, I am what I am. I'm saying what I've been through and I'm processing that. I think that was really, really big, especially on a song like White Teeth. I think that bridge for me is like one of those bridges that I listen to over and over again, and I just can't get over how at different seasons it just connects. And then maybe One more. It's so hard because there's been so many. Yeah.
Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond. Have
He's
you been to
saying-
one of Dennis's shows?
He's saying that because we've been smashing Sweet Caroline
Sweet
live.
Caroline, what tune goes off.
Yeah, it's really hard to give you one more, but
We'll come back to it.
Well, let's go with
Let's think about-
let's go with Coin. Let's go with Coin. I
Oh,
think
great. You got
I
me on-
think
yeah, that's true. That's true.
and it breaks my heart that they've broken up. But
Yeah.
I think they
Wow.
inspired me also from a lyrical point of view, but also a big inspiration just in 75 as well, from a big point of view of your music is allowed to be reflective, deep, lyrically special, and it can bop. It can do both. It's allowed to do both. But then their catalogs are so diverse. Like being able to listen to, in Coin's case, a song like, I don't know, Crash My Car or Valentine, a song that everyone, this Vegemite sourdough is going to make me burp again. You can listen to those songs, and then you can go and listen to songs, like a song on the new Coin album like 222, or a song like, I don't know, just a 75 song like Be My Mistake, or a song like Then Because She Goes, where it's not necessarily this crazy pop song. And there's just diversity in the catalog, and I felt listening to those artists that I was basically being told through the music, you can do whatever you want, and you don't have to conform.
Yeah.
You know, the last EP was folk. It doesn't matter. I can do what I want, and it's not about what it sounds like. So yeah, I think that's probably
Beautiful.
what I'm listening to at the moment.
Yeah. Well, this is perfect. We're going to get into having a listen to the songs on the EP, Chrysalis. So if you're listening along at home or watching, however you want to be taking this all in, we are going to listen to every individual song. Feel free to listen along with us, and then we're going to talk about the beautiful mind behind each song and the stories. Dennis, we're going to pause it, listen to the song. Dennis is probably going to go have more Vegemite and sourdough and then burp between the intervals.
Tell me you're an Australian artist.
I know,
Tell me you're an
I
Australian
know.
artist.
But first song is Chrysalis.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, there we have it. So that's song one of the new EP, Chrysalis. Song one. I can't just say it's beautiful. It really does. Kind of, it makes you feel like you are entering into an EP. It is this kind of like, well, the name actually says it itself. So just tell us about that name.
Yeah,
Chrysalis, because that's a pretty Where'd you get the inspiration for that?
Yeah, I remember early on talking to you boys about what to call this, and I always had this note in my phone, and it seems funny to look back on, but yeah, it was called Butterfly Season, and the whole idea of it was I wanted to make an EP about a season, which is just, it's just funny how it's all turned out. It's meant to be, but Chrysalis, just for me, I wanted to start the EP on a blank slate. I think that's what I wanted. I wanted it to feel like people were coming into an experience. I think this is the most album-like thing I've ever made, and I wanted it to tell a story, hence, all the little voice notes and things that are on this EP, and it's not just four or five songs. So I think I was also just really inspired by people who, when they make albums, similar to 1975 or people like that, who they like to set a sonic palette at the start which makes it feel like it's a world or it's an idea rather than
Sonic
just,
palette.
Yeah, Sonic palette. Put that
Nice,
on
I
the
like
big
that.
list. Yeah. And I think, yeah, just, you know, Matty Healy and these sort of people always talk about when, you know, especially kids of the 90s like us and early 2000s, you'd play a video game and there'd be a startup sound and you'd feel like you were being personally
Yeah.
addressed, right? So I just wanted something like that really just made like a sonic mark on like what it's going to sound like. But at the same time, we were talking about this earlier, just how that song is made up of a bunch of other songs. It's all the stems from a bunch of other songs kind of repurposed and put into one. And I think it felt like this beautiful, I use the word resurrection, put that on the list as well.
Come on.
Of all the stuff I've done in the past now leads me here. I think that's kind of the thought. I think maybe the only thing on there that's not completely original from old music is the big deep breath at the end. And I think for me, I made Chrysalis fairly late in the process. I didn't make it at the start of the EP process. And I think I wanted, like I said, I want something to feel like it was starting and to have this really beautiful kind of like sonic, you know, marker of this is something new. But I also wanted something that felt like, you know, and that's maybe to me, that's what that breath symbolizes, is just slow down, reflect, process what you're going through. And I think also just you and I love to talk about breathing and just slowing down when you're feeling intense, etc.
Being still.
Yeah, just being still. I think it's just all about taking a deep breath in and just taking a breath out and going, this is a new thing. This is a new season. This is a new thing.
It like
starting fresh. I think that's what it's all
symbolically
about.
actually talks about, it kind of represents seasons and you
for sure.
entering into a new season. But it also, just as a listener, kind of gives you permission to be like, all right, we're about to listen to this.
Yeah,
Which
for sure.
we'll talk about this a bit later. We'll get on to the second song.
Yeah.
Decide to listen to all these songs. But it does kind of bring up the question of how would you want your listeners to listen to this? And the great thing about good artists is that each song can be listened on its own. You can put it on the car and whatever, and that's great. But you do ultimately want a listener to sit, be entered into it, and to listen to it as a journey, right?
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I probably only realize now, is that because obviously I'm sitting in my room listening to this top to bottom, you know, the end of it all, and I am listening to it as one thing.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a little bit album-like in that way, but that's definitely for anyone who's listening at home. Like, I think, you know, that's what artists want. Not that it's all about us. You can connect to the songs individually, but I think if you want to, if I were to express this season that I've been through, it would be from song 1 to song 7. You know, it is about the whole experience. Although I think a lot of, you know, obviously we put out singles before and stuff like that, but, you know, the songs are curated in that order for a reason. I spent a lot of time thinking about that. So maybe that's just another thing worth mentioning is this song is track 1 for a reason. You know,
absolutely.
like it's there to kind of
feels
mark
like
that.
it.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Yeah, so it goes into the second song now.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite title, right? When I think of love, I think of you.
Yeah.
All right, so
Give it a
join
listen.
us. Give it a listen now.
Cool.
Let's do it.
I see you in the sunset, yeah. I see you in the color of somebody else's eyes. I crave you in the morning, but I need you more at night. So by the time this cigarette is gone, I'll need another one to keep me alive while you're gone. I'll make the same mistake, thinking of your body. I'm a moth to the flame. That's how I love you so, and I can't let you go. See you in the ocean my breath. You're the thought that's rushing by when I'm contemplating death. And if I'm gonna grow up with you, baby, maybe we should learn to take our love out time. Just tell me that you feel it, tell me that you feel alright. By the time this cigarette is gone, I'm gonna need someone, and that someone is you. That's alright. I love you so. That's alright. But I can't let you go. Money comes around again to fuck me up, pull me in. You tell me that it's gonna be alright. Didn't know that I get scared. See me for what I really am, and you tell me that it's gonna be just fine. That I love you so. Yeah.
When I think of love, I think of you.
Oh, thanks, Will.
Yeah, I think of you, man.
I've been waiting
I've
to use
adapted you
that
this
one.
whole time. Well done. For the people back at home, I want to say well done.
We're big
What a
dappers.
great song. Started off strong there, even though song one is sending you into it. It's quick. It's its own song. When I think of love, I think of you is straight into having a bit of, especially when you play something like that live.
Yeah.
Talk about walkout songs.
Yeah.
We were mentioning before.
Yeah.
Chrysalis is perfect walkout
Yeah,
song.
it's
Lights
great.
come on, however you want to do it. And then when I think of love, I think of you, you start jamming out. You set the scene.
Yeah,
So it
it's
is
great.
interesting. Maybe you've thought about this, but you kind of set it up perfectly for a live show. But when I think of
Yeah.
love, I think of you. Very personable kind of title. How'd you come to that title? Is there a you? Are you talking about anyone special?
Yeah,
Your
I think-
wifey? What are you talking about there? And what's that song about?
Yeah, I think, that title just came up. And I think, once again, that's maybe the Gang of Youth's inspiration a little bit. Just those long, kind of drawn-out titles that have a lot of maybe meaning to them. But, yeah, dude, we played this on the weekend, and we had Chrysalis on as well as a walk-on song, and it did pair really well together, which was a good pickup from
Great
you.
weekend. Shout out Manny Hamid. Hype man. Hype man.
Oh, it's good to have your friends in the crowd. It's very
Yeah.
comforting. But yeah, when I think of love, I think of you as... It's not necessarily about one specific person. I think it's more about the idea, I think, of anything more than anything else. I think it's more about the universal idea. And for me at the time, like I said, contextually with everything that was going on, all of us want ultimately at the end of the day is to belong and to want to be loved. And I think that I just probably had a bit of a universal moment of understanding that looks different for everybody, but we all still have the same vein in all of that. And I think there's romantic love. There's all these different, as
Yeah,
we all
runs
know,
deep.
there's
Yeah.
different kinds of love and care, but I think at the core of all of it is just the idea that we want to feel wanted, we want to feel that we belong. And I think
Yeah.
the song for me was about thinking about everyone else throughout my life, people who are no longer around, people who, like my granddad, people like my family overseas in South Africa, people like my wife or my dog, and seeing them and recognizing how special their presence is in your life every day. And I think this was the first song that I wrote for the EP, and I think I probably wrote it out of a time of feeling very high on gratitude, high on life, in terms of just like, living in a place with someone you love and then going to a job that you don't actually hate and having, and just pure gratitude. I think that's what it is. And I think, the song kind of is written from the perspective of being about maybe someone, but it's actually about just seeing things and people that you love in everyday places. And
that's the duality of music, though, right? Is that people might think we always want to go, oh, what are they singing about? Who are they singing about?
Yeah.
And maybe they are singing about a specific person, but the selfishness of music sometimes can be like, all right, I'm singing about this, but the selflessness of music is that it opens it up for everyone to kind of have their own
relationship, for sure.
Relationships that pop up when you're a song like that. So I think that definitely is the catalyst to the meaning of the whole album. I think that's really beautiful.
Totally.
Which brings us to the third song. Half-Life. Is that right?
That's
I'm
right.
good. I remember it.
Yeah.
Half-Life.
This is so funny doing this with your friend.
I
Who's
know.
also being a podcast.
I know. I feel like I'm yelling into this microphone. But
that's
Half-Life keeps up that energy. Let's listen to it.
Let's do it.
You've gotta look away sometimes to see the sunset change. You've gotta let somebody go if they're in a better place. You've gotta break your heart to know just what it feels like on the other side. You've gotta smoke that cigarette on the back steps late at night. So won't you call me up in the middle of the night? We can talk about everything that's happened since July. And there's so much color, not enough sky. So I keep holding on to halfway, trying to live before I reach my half-life. Why do I feel so lost when I get everything I think I want? And if time's still on my side, how do I turn this chrysalis into a butterfly? Won't you call me up in the middle of the night? We can talk about everything and what's been on your mind. And there's so much color and not enough sky. So I keep holding on to halfway, trying to live before I reach my half-life. So won't you call me up in the middle of the night? We can cry about then it says the sun begins to rise. And I know it's fleeting, I know that it's right. So I'm holding on to halfway, I'll see you on the other side.
What a song. What a song. Half-Life. What a tune. That's got a lot of a lot of emotion in it straight away.
Definitely.
Not to sound like super wanky or anything, but it is true. You go from you jammed out and then you've kind of just cruised down. Still got those drums there, by the way, and I think I want to talk about that before you start talking about the story behind it.
Yeah.
one thing that's very different to your last EP is that just small things I've noticed, like the drums.
Yeah.
You've got a bit of
What do you like about the drums?
well, like we said before, I love when you mentioned the inspiration of Gang of Youths, but
Yeah.
it really keeps you in it. But
Yeah.
was that intentional?
Of course.
Keeping I
yeah,
think you definitely
Yeah, for sure. I think
evolved as an artist when it comes to little intricacies like that.
I think it's just evolved naturally because I don't play drums, and I started playing a little bit of drums, not to any kind of professional standard. But also, I think just looking back to like the sounds, the first EP was very sampled drums, almost hip hop esque in terms of the way we would put it together. And Jared had a lot of the mastermind behind the groove and stuff, you know,
Yeah.
coming from a house
Which you know
background.
as well, yeah.
But I think on the next EP, I didn't really need to worry about drums that much because it was so folky, and I just I'm a big fan of this guy called Jake Reed, who he does like a dead drum sound, and that was my gateway into being able to play with live drums without actually having the skill to do it myself. And then moving on, it's like I've been kind of blessed enough to probably just kind of get a bit of an understanding of how drums work from playing them and getting it all put together. And then whenever I'm not sure or I need something more complex, then I go to James from the band, and James drums for me. And but yeah, so that's actually a good. I think pretty much all the
I think
songs
it's just
have
something
drums.
to
Yeah,
notice.
which
Yeah,
is cool.
yeah. Which we'll get to the very last song. I think that's the best drums.
Oh,
but we'll
for
get
sure.
to that. So Half-Life, and I want you to kind of explain to the listeners, what is Half-Life? Like, what does that term actually mean?
Yeah,
and then
good
why did
question.
you pick that name?
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but sounds like there's a little bit. We talked about loss as one of the themes of this album, but yeah, it sounds like it's encouraging the song, but it sounds like a little bit hurt, like a little
on
bit
the
vulnerable.
melancholic side, for sure.
So
So
what's the song about?
the term Half-Life is like, it's a term I remember from year 11 chemistry class.
Yeah,
Shout out
yeah.
Mr. Naidu if you're listening.
He's listening.
And Half-Life is, someone's going to correct me, probably. Maybe correct me in the comments or whatever. I
We're
don't know.
actually teachers originally by trade, which is wrong. So, but we're
Outing
neither of us
ourselves
are
here.
science.
Yeah,
Neither of us
no,
are
we're not
science
science.
teachers, so it's all right. I don't think anyone.
So half-life means the time at which it takes a compound or a substance to absorb or kind of deteriorate to half of its value. So
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jans.
thank you, Mr. Jans. Thank you, Mr. Naidu. And I think for me, I've always wanted to write a song called Half-Life. This is one of those ones that I kind of had it in the notes and it just came up and bubbled up because for me, the term half-life is this really metaphoric way of saying how long does it take for something to be half or feel like half of what it's worth on like an emotional level. Like you would never walk around and go, I'm going through my half-life of my happiness right now.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it was a relatable concept at the time. And I think to get into the story of it, this song has that duality of being about my life and what I'm going through and losing someone or the loss of someone in our group and our community who's close to us. But it's also in the process of going through and processing that loss, in the process of writing the song, acknowledging that maybe I've got some unhealthy or dangerous ways that I think about getting older.
Yep.
And putting timelines on things and kind of looking at 30 as this scary thing and looking at getting older as just being worse. But weirdly enough, if I think about it, and this comes up in other songs like War Made the Cigarette and Pisces and all these other songs, that life's probably actually the best it's ever been.
Yep.
If you really choose to look at it that way. So I think that's kind of it. And then to get into the loss element of it, one of our best friends, Manny, who, if you've ever been to a Love show, he's the guy up the
He's
front
the
just
man.
losing his
We love him
mind.
so much.
But
Good
he,
man.
it's funny because his mum, Helen, shout out Helen, she's always looking after us.
Yeah.
She was long time partnered with a good mentor of ours. His name's also Dennis, which is why
Yep.
there's a reference to him at the end of the song. It's not a reference to me, which is, I've always got to explain that because people think I'm writing a song about myself, which is funny. But yeah, so he just, tragically passed away and we didn't know it was coming. We didn't know it was happening. And I don't want to kind of take weight away from, I don't want to make it all about me and like the fact that we lost someone because our dear friend and his mum lost someone really important to them. But I think it did definitely impact all of us as well. They obviously felt the brunt of that, and I
There was
feel like
someone in our community that
yeah,
really,
and we're
influenced us
allowed
all.
to own that. I need to remind myself
Absolutely, yeah.
that just because he wasn't my
As
family
Manny and
member,
Helen would say as well.
yeah, and that 100%. I think it was just the first time in my life there was someone that I felt maybe that I had taken their presence for granted a little bit, and also just seeing how it affected my best friend, how it impacted all of us as a group, and I think for me it was this thing of like, once again, maybe I'm getting goosebumps a little bit, but it's a bit corny to say, but it's like, it sounds so existential, but things could end tomorrow. Things could change tomorrow. And if you don't have an awareness and tell people you love them and tell people that you appreciate them and take time to be intentional with them, put your freaking phone down and just listen to them and acknowledge their presence, it could be gone tomorrow.
It's fleeting. It is fleeting.
And that's how it happened. And it's a brutal thing to... Yeah, and I think, probably my perspective on the song is about losing that and then having someone go through that as well. But it's also about seeing that and going, my life is not over. I'm getting older and it's actually a good thing. I'm learning to experience all these things. I'm learning how to process them. I'm learning how to be part of a bigger group of people and feel love and acceptance for who I am. But also how to support someone. And I think, once again, coming back to the term half-life, it's like, how long does it take? I probably thought to myself that by the time I was 40, life would be over and it just doesn't really matter anymore. And, and I get FOMO and I don't want to do this. And so you just cram pack everything into your 20s thinking that it's going to be everything. But what about the rest of your life? By the time you turn 30, you might still have almost double that, maybe even more life left to live. It's not over.
No.
And I think Dennis was a great person for, he had such an incredible journey as a human being, going from being a young man and then kind of, going through and being kind of a bit of a troublemaker and then changing his life and turning that around and kind of... Yeah, I think it was just a reminder that life's not over. And I think I said this to you and Jared as well. I think a bit of a cry at the funeral. And I think I just had this moment where I realized what a blessing it would be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years' time to be standing at, and we probably will be at the funeral of each other and not look at that as a thing of, oh my God, we're all going to die. We need to live right now and be stupid. But to go, what an honor to know that person and to love them. And it sucks to lose them, but we did it together and we made it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think when talking to you and talking to Manny and Helen after they went through this loss and are still grieving and it's a journey, it's funny. We keep going to say, oh, I know it sounds corny, and then we go and say these things. But I think we need to acknowledge that corny things exist because they are true.
They're true. They're real.
And I think one big thing I got out of that, and I think everyone gets out of loss, is... it is better to have loved and lost than to not have loved at all.
For sure.
And it's amazing that things like this and loss hurt so much because it was so good.
Yeah.
And it's the yin and yang. You can't have, you can't love someone without the idea of potentially losing them and eventually losing them.
Yeah.
And
inevitable.
what a blessing it is. And we're talking to Manny, and shout out to Manny about how reflective he is on this, but it is truly an incredible blessing to go through the pain of grief, which sounds funny to say, because because you love them and they loved you so much.
And if it didn't hurt, it didn't mean anything.
I know, exactly.
So yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah,
that's
thanks,
good.
Man.
Woo,
that's a heavy one,
dude. You didn't cry. That was crazy.
Yeah,
Close to it.
That's a heavy one.
That's a heavy one, but that's what it's about. That's what art's about. So, moving on.
Freckles.
To the next song, Freckles.
Yeah.
Listen to it. Let's go.
I could die on this hill, count freckles on your face, falling out of place, summer starts to build. That's how I know the feeling let go is somewhere in my DNA. Get on a plane, forget who you know, only 6 years old. I'm trying to live like you're on my shoulder. I'm getting older, starting to heal. Then I argue with mom and my native tongue. It's somewhere in my DNA. When I get off my face, miss still that way, but tomorrow I'll pay.
Song 4.
Yeah.
Freckles.
Yes, sir.
Cute name. Got to say, you're really on one with these names. Just
Yeah,
keep going.
it's going
They're
to be
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many references in that song we could talk about. But I
What
guess
stands out to you, do you think?
well, I wanted to mention we have spoken a lot about the environment in which you create and things that people that inspire art. And this EP, specifically this house.
Yes.
And you mentioned the hill.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What's the
Yes.
story behind the song? Talk about the hill, which we're literally sitting in front of the hill right
Yeah,
now, right?
yeah,
Like
that's
behind us through this window is this beautiful view.
Ocean
and,
views.
It's on this lovely hill where I think we've all
Spent
had
hours.
fantastic
Hours and
conversations
hours and hours, yeah.
together. So, yeah,
Yeah.
Freckles, talk to us about it.
Yeah, that's the opening line is, yeah, I could die on this hill. Obviously, double entendre for dying on a particular idea or concept, but
Yeah.
also just I could die on this hill with all my friends and I'd be happy, which
that
is
good.
so funny to think
that
about
good.
saying that when you've just had a song
Yeah.
about someone actually passing away.
like, yeah.
But obviously, it's just that metaphor of being very.
Well, you're saying this
yeah.
is exactly how I want it when I go out. I want these people
Yeah.
around me.
For sure.
This
And
is-
these
this is- it's like
circumstances
it's saying
are, yeah.
it doesn't get better than this.
Yeah.
which is true.
Yeah, that's so
it's
true.
beautiful.
Yeah, Freckles is a weird one. Freckles kind of originally, I really wanted it to be a whole song. And
It's short and sweet. hey?
it's very short
Yeah.
and sweet. And maybe I just have captured what it was about in enough words that I felt like I said everything I needed to say. And I did try to turn this into a whole song, but it just didn't. I felt like I was meandering on the idea. But Freckles is strangely about, I think, after all that existentialism, after all the loss and kind of going through that period with Half-Life in that song, I kind of had a moment where I reflected on my own life a little bit again, as I constantly have been doing. And in that process, I had a phone call with my mum. And in my whole entire adult life, I'd never, ever had a kind of conversation with someone that I love with that much respect, and just probably lost a little bit of control and composure. And it's not really worth getting into what it was about necessarily, but I think it's more about the lesson. And so I had a really intense argument with my mum, which is probably the first time I felt like that's ever happened in my adult life. And it felt potentially damaging, but I also felt maybe I needed to do it to prove that I wasn't a child anymore,
Yep.
which is kind of a weird thing to do. Anyway, that argument led me to really think about a lot of this, and we were saying this off camera before, it feels like a bit of an extension of Half-Life, this song, in that it's kind of about all of the people in your life that you want to appreciate. And I think, I love that I left the other audio rolling. It's just going off in the background. Anyway, I'm just going to turn it off.
We can stop it.
No, it's fine.
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing's
All
perfect.
right?
Anyway, so Freckles is also then about thinking about all the other people in my life. And I think, like, just going through the lyrics, is I could die on this hill, count freckles on your face until summer starts to peel. And it's this kind of, once again, looking into the time period of this EP being in that June-July period where we kind of do see summer go away, and thinking about my wife who, when she gets sunburnt, she gets very, very freckly.
Which is a beautiful detail.
Oh,
I love that. We're hopeless
very
romantics,
cute.
but I feel like everyone
Yeah.
can appreciate
Yeah.
the poetry in that. Yeah.
And it's funny, like, looking at someone you love's face and physically seeing the season come to an end by the fact that they're shedding skin. Like, it's this
Wow.
beautiful. I just remember
Gosh.
being on the hill, looking at her, the sun's going down. I've had this argument with my mum, and I'm just thinking, like, everything is a bit fleeting and kind of seasonal, and we have to. And maybe Freckles is deep down. Freckles is about looking at my whole life, talking about even immigrating as a kid. Getting on a plane at 6 years old and leaving
From South
everyone,
Africa.
and leaving everyone behind, and that's a season, and this is and just kind of acknowledging that life is a journey. I think that's what Freckles is kind of about. And also then needing to be careful, because if you look at things only seasonally, you'll either miss it while it's happening. If you're trying to identify it too much, you'll miss it, or you'll try and hold on to it. And that's my tendency. I think that is what Freckles is about, is holding onto this idea of, I'm not a child anymore. I want to be a child, but I want to be an adult. So I'm going to argue with my mum about this particular thing in this kind of vain way of trying to prove to myself that I'm an adult. Or, maybe it's going out and having one too many big nights and finding where the limit is to prove to yourself that you're invincible, or something like that. It's just trying to hold on to these ideas too tightly. And at the end of the day, all I really want is to be on the hill when the sun's setting with the people I love, and I don't need to push people away to prove anything to myself. So it's short, sweet, and I feel like I kind of said everything I needed to say, and that's why it didn't end up being a whole song. But yeah, that's kind of what Freckles is about.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You have a way with words, Dan. You have a way with words.
Stop.
I think that I thought it would get emotional the last song, but just hearing you talk about almost how you can actually physically see the transition into another season on someone's skin is actually quite
that's cool. Hey,
beautiful. I really like that. I didn't actually even realize that. I think it's amazing
one of,
that you can learn that from songs that constantly.
I think
people
that's,
can have their own
that's
understanding.
what we talked about in the intro. Is like, sometimes I listen to these things back and I go, how did I make that? I don't know. I'm not capable of actually.
It does seem mystical. You know how Rick Rubin talks about kind of like the songs are out there and then you're the one that's
channeling,
like
antenna,
spiritually like blessed to get them, which sounds wild.
Yeah.
But
this one felt like that.
Yeah, I guess that's how that's why we say those things, because it feels like that, which is beautiful.
Thanks.
The next song, mate.
Yeah.
Absolute.
Your favourite?
Cracker. That might hurt your ears, just screaming into the microphone. And we are turning it up a notch. You really do come in and you see a lot of those influences like 1975, Game of Youths. And I feel like you have, and you did by the looks of it when we saw Dennis play on the weekend at Felons. Shout out Brizzy. Pisces seems like a lot of fun. So Pisces
it's a good one.
is the next song. My favourite, my personal favourite. I love it. He sent me the voice memo of it, and I've just been listening to it in the car and going for a run and whatnot. So Pisces, be sure to listen to the full thing at home. Let's do it.
Remember when it started, you fractured like a can. Now the tears run slowly into my tongue and I can't taste it. And I can't make it complicated, it all lives in my head. So I'm cutting my head if I'm trying to let go, but I haven't learned how yet. I'm getting older, it's fine. Why do I feel like I'm wasting my time? Getting older, it's fine. Why do I feel like I'm wasting my time? So don't call me a Pisces in a metanoid state. I'll be pushing my luck till I piss it all up. What a spiritual statement. And I can't make it complicated, and it all lives in my head. So I'm cutting this line looking for a revelation. Getting older is fine. Why do I feel like I'm wasting my time? Getting older is fine. Why do I feel like I'm wasting my time?
track 5, Pisces. I'm assuming everyone listened along to it because it's a very engaging song. Straight away you're into it. But talk about our names, Pisces. That definitely intrigues.
Gonna get in trouble here, I think.
But a lot of the audience would love that. But there is something to be said about why you pick these names as we keep going back to.
Yeah.
But what a fun song, dude.
Yeah, it's fun, hey. It's fun to play, fun to make. Bit of a highlight song after maybe 2 or 3 more kind of down-tempo, more emotional.
Yeah, you pick it back up.
Yeah.
Pretty beautifully, yeah. You followed it. We were saying before off camera that you followed the narrative quite well, and the songs and the tone of the songs and the movement has moved pretty nicely.
Yeah.
And you had fun playing it the other night on the weekend. Yeah.
Love it, yeah.
So yeah, what's this song about? We were talking about the wrestle of like growing up, and you kind of be like, it's fine, which you literally sing in the song.
Yeah.
Talk us about
I
this
think
song.
this song is probably, in many ways, it's not obviously the title track of the EP, but in many ways it's like, let me tangent for a sec to kind of get to the end point. But so one of the other reasons I love the idea of Chrysalis is because it's this metamorphosis of the larvae of the butterfly. We're not science teachers. We got to get this right. It's all about metamorphosis. It's about metanoia. All these words, metanoia, metamorphosis, all in reference to the self changing, right? Yep. And so, the reason I went with Chrysalis as a name is because I felt like it represented what that season did for me, which is bring me out of a state of comfort and maybe a little bit of negligence in my own life when it comes to just who I am and wanting to grow and everything I got to go through, to then kind of, with this season that we've been talking about the whole time, being in this state of transformation. And so Pisces feels like in the life cycle, if we're going to use the life cycle of a butterfly as a metaphor, Pisces is like, it's opening up. It's finally opening up. I'm not out yet, but it's opening up. I can see the sun.
I can see the light at the end of the
I can
tunnel.
see and so it's more playful, it's more fun for that particular reason, and it's a bit more lyrically just on the nose. Getting older is fine, you know. We use the word fine with a different tone in Australia anyway, of it's fine.
It's almost like a suppressing thing.
Yeah,
it's fine.
But then it's also like, it's fine. Yeah, come on, that was sick. We didn't plan that at all.
It's whatever.
So that was a big part of it for me. And yeah, I think I wrote the second verse with you. Well, you were there, and you were a great, actually in-person bouncing board for that song. I have to also give a lot of credit to Ellis Hall from Loretta, Loretta's one of my favorite bands out of Sydney.
Great band, go check them out for sure.
Yeah. And I had this idea, very 1975 inspired, and I sent it to Ellis, and Ellis was like, this is a cool melody. He probably just did it in 2 seconds, and it just felt right and it worked. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell what it's about. I think the second verse is what I was going to allude to next, is very much, I think, sums up. It's a bit on the nose. It's a bit sarcastic. It's a bit, I don't know. It's like, don't call me a Pisces in a metanoic state. You're pushing my luck till I piss it all up. What a spiritual statement. It's this idea of like, when you're trying to find yourself, there's so much stuff out there, and I'm not at all for a minute insinuating that I, don't. Astrology is fascinating to me, right? And I'm not necessarily having a go at that or saying that I don't think it's legit or anything like that. For me, it was just, I remember going through this period and running into people who were not my friends, who were not going through what I'm going through, or even it's the internet, going through things on the internet and seeing people talk about things and trying to relate to my experience. And I felt like, in a weird way, it was impossible for anyone else to kind of grasp that spiritual moment or that transformational time in my life, because they just didn't go through it with me. And that's okay. Everyone goes through their own things. And so I think that second verse for me kind of sums up in a lot of ways the whole EP. It's like, I'm going through something, I'm transforming, I'm learning about myself, I'm kind of being uncomfortable again, I'm kind of growing, I'm accepting the fact that I'm getting older and one day I'm going to die and all these things. But at the end of the day, that experience and that kind of process is my own. I have to own it as well. I can't live it vicariously through someone else or through an explanation that's given to me. I have to find my own explanation. And so the whole don't call me a Pisces thing, like I'm a Pisces from an astrology point of view. And I always read that stuff and go, geez, that's like so on the nose for me. And being a little bit more nostalgia focused or sentimental is a classic Pisces things to do. So I felt like I would read things like that or see things like that and be like, dude, that's me. But also I can't tie these experiences to things outside of my bubble. I need to anyway. And so, yeah, I feel like that's probably one of my favorite verses. It's a little bit sarcastic, a bit playful. And then the rest of the song is just, I remember just wanting it to feel like release. I was like, I want the ending part to feel like release. And I feel like it's one of the few times where I really labored on the end of a song and it just worked. So that was extremely scattered for me.
I mean,
yeah, I hope I
like we
summed it
said,
up.
nothing's perfect, and there's a process to writing and creating these songs, and they're not just the first go sort of thing. Hey?
No.
Yeah. I love it. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
It's such a fun song,
Yeah,
dude.
it's good.
I think it is. Maybe I'm biased, but I think it would definitely be a favourite of everyone when the EP comes
for sure.
out, or if you've already listened to it. But yeah, this brings us to our final song, correct?
Well, we got
No,
a little
sorry,
interlude.
we've got my bad.
No, that's all right.
Getting fired
It's not
after
really
this
a
video.
song, but
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's needed, right?
Yeah.
We've got a interlude, which
Yeah.
is this the first time you've done an interlude in a?
Not the first time. I've done heaps of interludes, but it's the first time I've done an interlude that isn't musical.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah,
And
it was
this-
nice to hear your voice. That's what
Yeah.
it's called.
I naturally just want to get into talking about it, but we'll listen to it.
We'll
It's
listen to it
quick.
real quick.
Definitely recommend you listen to this whole thing.
And it
we'll,
really sets up for me the last song.
yeah.
In the way
Which
that
is,
Freckles kind of works off the back of Half-Life. This one works kind of in kind of preparation for War
Yeah.
Made the Cigarette. I will put it on.
Yep. Let's do it.
Just kidding. Hey bro, yeah, pulled up all good after a massive night, but just, went with the motions, got through it, but thanks for saying all that stuff, man. I've been feeling like we're coming, or we have shut that season, it's ended, and it's good to grieve a season, and, otherwise life is just one big blur. It's good to have chapters of when something begins and when something ends, and I really feel the end of that season. I really feel like we're all on the other side of something. I'm super grateful for you too, man, and I'm excited for your journey. I don't think of it as a if, but a when. And I hope you keep up that self-belief, man, because I know you're on a roll right now. Just keep going. We want to see you to the stars. And not just see, but I believe in you. Don't have any, have your internal recognition. Don't have imposter syndrome. Don't worry about the externals. Grateful for you, man, and grateful for you and Brooke and all you did for me and Mum in that season. And it's just been wonderful. I know our brotherhood has always been strong, but just anything like that going through and having you there is just like fortified for life, man. So I love you. You're a blessing to me, and love to see you soon.
Wow. So, talk about interludes. That's beautiful. Hey,
It is.
I think it's. We've spoken a lot today about. I think it's pretty obvious to the listeners and to the fans about. You've been pretty open and honest and vulnerable about the story of the EP, and interludes are meant to be that gel that kind of tethers all of the songs together. Kind of gives people a bit of a breather to remind them why they're there to listen to it.
Yeah.
And just referencing who we were talking about earlier, and you've been talking about everyone in your life. It's been a thing we keep coming back to. But our dear friend Manny, one of our best mates, who lost his dad, and who was important to all of us.
For sure.
But yeah, it is crazy that this interlude is based off a voice memo you received from your dear friend Manny.
Yeah.
And then it's wild that it perfectly matches up with the point that
Yeah.
we're at with the listening of the EP.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
going into the last song and coming out of Pisces, which is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of, it wasn't really intentional. It just
No,
shows that
no.
this EP is about this season that we're going through, you've been going through, and we're coming out of into, I wonder
Yeah,
what,
for
the
sure.
next season will be. Yeah, but yeah, tell us about that, because it's
Yeah.
very special. And the piano we've got to talk about in the background,
Oh,
which is
of
our other
course,
dear
of
friend,
course.
Luke Newhausen. Shout out to Luke.
Yeah, I think this one, I want to start talking about this one and just say that this was an accident. Like
Yeah.
this whole, and I've been very
Nothing's
conscious.
an accident, man. Nothing's an accident. Come on.
Well, that's kind of.
But it was an
where
accident.
That's
It was
where
an
I'm
accident.
going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so the amount of times Rick Rubin or these people that we look up to will tell you it's better just one of my mentors, Tom Eggert, like, just commit to things, even if they're not meant to be. And I think sometimes, like you said, there are no accidents. And so this was an accident in that I got this voice memo from Manny, I think maybe on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, right before we were I think we might have been just about to party for New Year's Eve, or maybe even the next day after. And it's kind of beautiful in that I just sort of saved it to my phone as this reminder for myself. Like I would listen to it on my own, that I need to believe in myself, imposter syndrome. Like, Manny knows me and you and everyone else in and out. He's just that kind of guy. And it's almost like he wrote this voice message down or recorded it down just for me to play to myself, to remind me of what I need to hear from someone.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And so I would just listen to it on my own, in the process of
amazing,
making this EP. And it was just kind of a bit of like a keep going and encouragement. And then, funnily enough, within that time of the EP kind of coming to life, we had a little fun night out, and it was very late. And I remember sleeping on the couch once again in this house. This is so important, this location. And I woke up to our good friend Luke just bashing away on the piano, and I just helped him fix it and kind of repair a few different things on it. And it was just this really...
Literally the piano to your left here.
Yeah,
Hey, I don't know
it's-
if
yeah,
they
I
can
don't
see
think
it,
it's in the frame, but it's just here. But
yeah.
and Luke was just playing it, and he was just playing the most beautiful thing. And I just remember recording it as like hey, this is just really nice. I just want to hang on to this for myself. And so I felt like the song needed maybe parts of that voice message. The EP needed parts of that voice message. And so out of kind of just laziness, I went to drag it into my Ableton session while I was making and I was going to just put the voice memo on as is. And as an accident, I'd already put this into my downloads folder, and they were named, the address of this place, because Apple does that. And they had, 19 and 20. And I accidentally dragged them both in, and they just worked. Like, it was this.
Oh, wow.
It was
So you literally grabbed those two. Oh, my goodness.
and it was just like this happy accident. And I remember
I did not know that.
Remember just sitting there and just being like, this is insane.
Wow.
And so
Far
I had
out,
to do a little bit of, I had to trim the fat a little bit with a few of the different things. But I think also just if you really listen to it, you can hear like our friends, my wife, our friends in the background just talking. And it's just...
It's actually crazy how it came together.
Yeah, it's really special.
Yeah.
And I think...
It's beautiful, mate.
And what I want people to take away from this interlude is like, it's like I felt that he was saying everything I needed to hear, but I also know the value and like the importance of sharing that from a musical point of view, because there's people out there who I think probably don't have what we have, or maybe they do and it just looks different. But for me, it was like this beautiful moment of like, I have these people in my life who would call me and tell me everything I need to hear without even me prompting it. So how powerful would that be to like share that with someone else who doesn't have that, and then I can...
Absolutely.
They get to hear what they need to hear from that. And, and it touches on all the subjects, but at the end of the day, it's the thing I just needed to hear, which was keep going. You're going to be okay. You're doing this for the right reasons. You're loved. You're accepted. And to hear that from the person who's actually lost the most in the last 6 months, as a beacon of just like...
The
just
universal
keep going.
truth.
Yeah. And he's
pressing
the one
on.
who's lost someone. He's the one who's had all this hard stuff going on. He's telling me to keep going. Like that's incredible.
It reminds me of what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, of how music is this duality of like selfishness and selflessness. We make music for ourselves. We create art as artists for ourselves, but in the end, it's for everyone to relate to and talk about something that can relate to people is the universal truth of this interlude, where it's like, yeah, you're right, that people are really struggling out there. We all struggle in our own way, and it looks different. It's important to be grateful, and it's important to realize, you keep pressing on. It is beautiful. And I hope that people actually do listen to that and
definitely
are moved by that and feel inspired by that too.
Yeah.
Just
Sets
great.
up the last song.
So
we're almost there. Last
talk
one.
about the journey of this EP.
Yeah.
We're into the last song. War made the cigarette.
Let's do it.
Love made me. I mean,
Another long title. Love
fantastic title.
Cool.
Let's get into it. Let's do it.
You're sweeter than wine, but I'm a vine without a trellis. If I throw you away for the time of my life, I'd regret it. Yeah. Suspicious of praise, 'cause it's been used as a weapon. Silence instead, but yours hits harder than heaven. And I've been crying over spilled milk. Always filling a hole, and it shapes suspiciously like you. It's taking a toll, trying to be a cowboy mode. Finding new ways to let you down, but you keep holding on to me like time. God made time. My mama made me from a bottle of wine. You'll always be here as long as there's love. The medicine they lies, but you won't think the night is. Jesus loves you. Your goddamn life, it'll always be here as long as there's love. Love.
There it is.
Done.
Done.
Yeah.
Done. It's
We made
over.
it. Two
Thanks, mate. It's been
regular-
great.
Two regular guys who have never done a podcast before.
Mate,
Love it.
yeah, never again, never again. No, more to come. Dude, talk about the gusto in that song. You really did finish gusto. That's a Hamish and Andy word.
Gusto.
There. You really did go out with a bang there, hey?
Yeah,
And
I wanted
is
it to.
the
yeah.
ultimate that you're talking about. The interlude and Pisces is the light at the end of the tunnel in the story we've been talking about along with the
way,
EP
yeah.
along the way. And you've come out the other end. And this song is, man, I straight away, if I was to confine the song to one word, I think hopeful.
Oh, for sure.
comes straight out of the interlude.
Yeah.
You have some beautiful imagery in there with the words, encouraging words. The title is beautiful. Yeah. War Made the Cigarette, Love Made Me. It's a very hopeful song. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's hard to know where to start with this one because
It's big.
it's a lot in one song. It's very open ended. It's very up to interpretation.
It's almost like part 2 to come. It almost feels like it's the end of a movie and it's like leaves you on a bit of a cliffhanger, but you're excited.
I think it's just closure. Like if I was going to think of one word, it's like you said, like, Pisces is this kind of, light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not there yet. And then that interlude is this reminder of to believe in yourself and you're going to be okay and we've gone through this and it's okay to feel everything you're feeling. This song is like we're driving out of the tunnel. It's like at the end of a movie, you're driving out of the tunnel
Yeah, it does
and the
feel like
movie's
that.
over. And I think,
Credits are rolling.
Yeah, and it's... I've had that note, War Made the Cigarette, written down for so long. I would have heard it somewhere. I can't remember where. And I think what this song is supposed to represent for me is the idea of we all come from somewhere. We all have life in us. We all go through different things. We all experience different things. And we kind of have... Maybe it's not always a choice. Maybe it's just how it is. It is what it is. That saying of like, you kind of sometimes have to make decisions about what you're going to do with yourself and how you're going to treat yourself and how you're going to move on. And sometimes the decision is made for you. And I remember with this EP going through loss and grief and finding limits and getting older and accepting that life's actually probably the best it's ever been and all these things and just being like, well, I've been through the season now. I'm faced with a choice. Do I live for the nostalgia of this season like I always have? And do I try and keep holding on to what that is all about? And do I live in the past? Or do I accept what I had from it? Do I put a full stop on it and I keep moving? And Manny says that in that voice message. He says, it's good to have seasons. It's good for them to end. It's good for them to come and it's good for them to go. And it's good to acknowledge them, but it's not good to, live in them and be nostalgic for them. It's good to take what you've learned from them and keep moving because that's a new season. It's a new, and I think, this song is
Keeps
like
life moving.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
good to
just
see.
like bang, new season. I think, this song lyrically is so tied in with the other songs as well. There's My Mama Made Me from a Bottle of Wine as a throwback to Freckles arguing with your mum in your native tongue. Like that's such a strange thing to do, and finding new ways to let people down and all these things. Like it's all so interwoven and connected. It's hard to talk about the song with any kind of objective reality other than just saying like it's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's I think that War Made the Cigarette, Love Made Me line is, to me, what it means is like, something like a war, which is one of the worst things that could ever happen to humanity, can take something like a cigarette or... Actually, it's coming back to me. So I remember hearing that the cigarette before World War One was apparently actually... We think of it the way we think of it today, which is it's actually really bad for you. It kills people, it gives you cancer. The world goes through this massive change. It goes through this massive just period of grief and loss and everything like that. And the cigarette rises to prominence as this way for people to... People would think it's just to cope. It's not just to cope. It was actually a means of socializing each other again. Learning, you hear these stories of Gallipoli or whatever else it might be on the front line of these guys sharing cigarettes on Christmas morning. It becomes this thing of like...
history teacher. Mr.
Yeah,
James
he's out. But yeah, I thought, rather than think of the cigarette as this means to kind of destroy your life, it's something that brings people together. Not that I necessarily am like being like, hey, it's all about smoking or anything like that. It's it's the metaphor of something bad or coming from a bad situation or a time of loss or grief.
Gallipoli or the war.
Yeah. Not that our situations are even remotely linked,
No.
but just purely as a metaphor. It's like there's something that brought them all together.
I love the juxtaposition between the two titles. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Love
Love
Made
Made Me
Cigarette,
is
Love Made
this
Me.
like, that bad thing brought upon another thing. And it's this idea of we all come from somewhere. We're all we're all reacting because of what we know and what we've learnt, but we kind of faced with this choice to keep moving. And I think maybe to sum it all up, like my choice is to decide actively for me as an individual to not live in the past, to keep moving, to like appreciate this for what it was, take the lessons and keep moving and see the light at the end of the tunnel. Don't get nostalgic for now. Don't get stuck here, because there actually was a lot of pain. There was a lot of growing. There's a lot of grief, a lot of amazing times too. But like Pisces says, like it's not over. Like I'm not getting older and it's done.
Yeah.
It's I'm getting older and it's actually fine. It's the best it's ever been.
Yep.
Look for the positives in all of that. And I think, and the concept of metamorphosis and metanoia and stuff keeps coming up. And this song, once again, it's like at the end, I think about the lines, war made the cigarette, love made me. What's the line at the end? What is it? God made time, Edison made lights, but your warmth in the night is Jesus loves you for the rest of your life, or for your whole goddamn life. It's like, for me, what I'm trying to get at is that things like time and light, which are almost like the two most fundamental things
Absolutes.
Universally,
Yeah, absolutes,
even they have their origins or have their place. And I think, especially with the Edison made lights, but your warmth in the night, is like, the whole idea of that is like, you have to find and you have to look for what those things are in your life. And for me, in this particular season, it's like, it's family, it's love, it's my friends, it's coming to a new understanding that I might not have it all figured out, but that's actually fine and that's good. And I'm going to keep learning. And I'm 27 as we are recording this. It's like,
Getting old, mate.
yeah,
Getting old.
and it's like, usually comments like that would make me existential, but I'm kind of just learning that it's, I'm getting old. It's like, it's cool,
fine.
it's fine.
It's fine.
And it's a good thing. And
Pisces
there's
reference
growth.
there, by the way. It all connects, man.
Yeah, and I think that's all I wanted it to be. It's a vein, and I have to say, I heard the drum groove at the end in my head after listening
And the strings,
to.
by the way. Let's touch on
strings
that. That
are
was unbelievable.
phenomenal.
Talk
And-
about Gang Hughes' influence.
Yeah, that's it.
Talk
there.
about an outro. It's
Beautiful.
insane, mate. Talk
Yeah,
about that.
it's
That's
great.
beautiful.
And it's just it's this big climax, and
Would you say it's the most complex song you've ever written?
I would. I
Or
I think lyrically,
the
it's
technicalities of it.
from like a musical theory point of view, it's not the craziest song or
Okay.
anything like that. But from a production point of view, it really does have two halves, and it really has like, this climax. And it is also one of the only records that I've made that has like all of the drums on there are recorded. Like, I'll often oversample or sample stuff, but the drum take was phenomenal, and I just heard it in my head, and James brought it to life, and I think it all just kind of ended, and I'm glad this was the last song. Like, I thought I was done, and then I got this song, so this one I think will feel special. It's not the kind of song I think I'll be able to play all the time, because it's still quite heavy on my heart when I hear it. But I think like when there's whenever there's a headline show or whatever, this song will always, I think, become a beautiful kind of ending to the show, because it just wraps everything up. So I'm not sure what else more to say, because it's just such an open-ended song.
I just wanted to say that literally before we started this conversation off camera, we were talking about how things like the birth of a baby don't necessarily, come in like babies not necessarily are born into perfect situations.
Yes.
But what's amazing is that war made the cigarette, love made me, is that it doesn't matter whether it's messy or not. Beautiful things can come from messy things.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
out of this season of grief and loss, beautiful things can keep coming.
I
And
think
it's very
that's what-
hopeful.
yeah, that's-
and I
you've
think you
probably
really
summed it up.
you really
Yeah.
do push that home in the last song. This idea
Yeah.
of rebirth and all the important things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Even though there are the absolutes of time and light and all the things in life that keep moving, it's okay. We keep moving on.
Yeah, for sure. I think you've
Seasons.
summed it up well. You've
Yeah.
summed it up better than I have. That's good.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks, bro.
It's been beautiful. It's been an honor having this conversation.
Oh, so weird, but so good.
Thank you to everyone who listened at home, whether you watched it on YouTube or are listening to it on your drive. I hope you really enjoy the EP. Love, love, love. Dennis Chance. It's been a pleasure. Plug it one more time, mate. The EP.
Yeah, dude.
What's it called?
Yeah.
It's probably out by now by the time people are listening to this.
Yeah,
right?
it will be, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You got a tour happening?
yeah, we got a tour happening. We're doing July 10 in Sydney, July 11 Wollongong. Almost couldn't get that out. July 19th in Melbourne, and then the 26th in Brisbane to finish it up.
Yeah.
And then we may do a little intimate secret show, which I haven't actually sorted out yet, but we'll do that. But yeah, Evie's out. Thanks for listening, and
Beautiful.
yeah, thanks
Been
guys.
good. Thank you, mate.